All right, it's been our custom since this whole lockdown and COVID-19 thing began. Our good friend from Mercy Health, Dr. Dennis Norem, has been joining us each and every Monday. We've been kicking around some of the latest on this, some things that maybe you hadn't heard or hadn't realized, and just some thoughts and observations on things, and we appreciate him taking time out of his morning once again for us. Dr. Norem, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Riley.
How's everything going this morning?
Well, so far so good, if it would just clear up a little.
Yeah, nothing says keep that social distancing going like a downpour that lasts for about 48 hours.
Yeah, fortunately, we're in high ground here, so we're doing fine.
Yeah, we are as well. Hey, here's a question for you, and I think this would be right up your alley. I'm reading a piece this morning that the headline reads, "Televisits may be here to stay for doctors and patients." They predicted this happening starting in the 1960s, that this would be a common thing. And, of course, a lot of predictions from the 60s didn't really come true. Flying cars, thank God. But since about mid-March, it's become a reality and a likelihood for millions of parents. Before this, less than 10% of American adults had ever had a telemedicine visit. But now that is changing, and many think it could be a permanent change. What's your take on that?
I think it probably is a permanent change in this society of electronic communication. People are going to take advantage of it. I think it is here to stay, but I'll be honest, I'm a little bit old school, and it's difficult for me. I do like to examine people. I do like to see people in a room and, face-to-face and one-on-one, so I've struggled a little bit with it.
Do you feel like the televisits will just be a standard, first blush, first look, just for something that you obviously can diagnose over the phone, just kind of a screening situation?
I think it's good for screening. That's a good point. I think maybe once you've been established with a primary care provider, it probably is a good way that you could communicate in the future with them. Once you've kind of established yourself and gotten your baseline. Obviously, the problem is you can't lay your hands on a patient. You can't examine them over the phone or over the video. So that does create some problems. And there's a big concern about what are you going to miss. There's a lot that is gleaned when you have somebody in front of you and you kind of get those nonverbal cues and things that you just can't get over a video screen.
That makes sense. Here are some numbers. It says nationally, telehealth visits, including for symptoms of COVID-19, are projected to climb to 1 billion by the end of this year. Uptick started in mid-March. Partners Healthcare, a Massachusetts-based healthcare system that includes Massachusetts General and Brigham and Women's Hospitals, 1,600 televisits for outpatient care in February, 89,000 in March, 242,000 in April.
Well, and obviously the COVID-19 situation has really pushed this along when you couldn't do anything else. Certainly televisits are better than just trying to do things over the phone. So it's certainly an improvement, but still has its limitations.
Have you guys installed any new devices, any new protocol for seeing televisits, or is this kind of what you guys were doing 3 months ago? The same procedure?
No, fortunately, it's very easy to come up with a program. Any type of computer that has a TV monitor, a camera on it, there's several different programs. We happen to use one called Duo, which I think is Google-based, and it's fairly simple to install. People can install it on their smartphone, and once the recipient and the doctor has it on their computer, very simple to go and do your televisit.
It's pretty amazing. My daughter Molly, who's still recovering from a serious liver injury, had a teleconference with her. Has had several, but I happened to walk through in the most recent one with her specialist, and I was stunned at how good this was. I thought it would be choppy. I thought there would be, he'd be in the middle saying something and it would be buffering, but none of that. It came through and it was almost 1-to-1 as far as real time goes.
No, I was surprised too. I've done a few televisits and pictures are incredibly good. And when it's one-on-one like that, as opposed to the group meetings that I've participated in, like the Zooms, those can be really choppy and break up, but I found that the televisit one-on-one picture quality, voice quality is excellent.
Shifting gears a little bit, another one I wanted to bounce off of you. The Telegraph has the piece this morning. Risk of coronavirus spreading in schools is extremely low, according to a new study. A major study shows negligible transmission of COVID-19 among pupils and teachers as the World Health Organization downplays that threat as far as younger people go.
Well, that's interesting because we initially really talked about the fact that kids don't get the coronavirus. They're really pretty much immune to it. There were very few cases reported early on. Now, the one thing that's popped up recently is this pediatric multisystem inflammatory response. Fortunately, it's very rare, but it is affecting kids. So I think there is still a concern, what are we going to do about schools as we move forward, given the fact that probably kids are pretty unlikely to get sick with the coronavirus.
Yeah, according to this, research looked at 18 infected teachers and students in 15 schools and found that despite them coming into contact with 863 people at the schools, only 2 were infected.
That's great news, and I think the other piece of that is when we can do more antibody testing and test some of these kids to see what the exposure rates. Hopefully we'll find that the illness rate after exposure is very, very low, which seems to be suggested by this study.
Why, have we looked into this? Why are kids less susceptible to this? And is this something we could maybe extrapolate out to help adults that have the COVID-19?
Excellent question. I don't think anybody really has looked, closely at that to know. Why would kids be less likely?
Are there other diseases out there similar to that where kids are not affected at the same rate as the general population?
Well, there probably are a multitude of diseases that affect kids primarily and don't affect adults and vice versa. But I think our best comparison is probably flu. And over the years, many of the flus were more likely to affect older people, and then we found that I think the H1N1 was a little more likely to affect kids. So there certainly is differences in immune systems, but I think that's one of those research questions that is going to take a lot of work to try to figure out what's going on.
Is there still a commonality? Because I read a thing the other day, and I only saw it single source. I didn't see it spread out all over the place. So I want to caution ahead, saying that it was a single source, but saying that the majority of people that we're finding that are passing from COVID-19, it was in the high 80s, maybe low 90s percentage-wise, have another underlying condition that contributed.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Most people, far and away, have we call comorbidities, significant illnesses, and I think that was true also with most of the pediatric cases.
So when we talk about the comorbidity, it doesn't necessarily, in your opinion, lessen the severity of a COVID-19. It's just that, especially, I know obesity is a big one of exasperating the COVID-19. Should that be? How do I word this? Should we not be as concerned about the disease because of these comorbidity traits we have, or the fact that we do have an obesity problem in this country, and it turns out that obesity a big factor? Should we be maybe even more concerned about it?
We probably should be more concerned. You've already hit on it. We have an obesity problem in our country. That's a definite comorbidity. We have a lot of older people who have multiple illnesses. Those are definite comorbidities. We already know that men are more susceptible than women, and even without comorbidities. So we have to be concerned until we can really identify specifically why or who is more likely to pass from the illness versus who's going to get exposed but doesn't seem to have a problem, has a very minor illness. It would be very helpful to figure out the differences and be able to predict based on some kind of risk model who's at higher risk.
Just haven't had time to build that risk model effectively yet, though, right?
Well, we don't have nearly enough information. We have a few things, as you've mentioned, or we've already mentioned, with the obesity, chronic illnesses, but we don't have anything, I think, close to be able to come up with a good risk model to say to an individual, here's your risk if you're exposed to COVID of getting disease and dying.
It's 17 after. If you're just joining us, we're spending some time with Mercy Health's Dr. Dennis Norem, who's been joining us on Mondays during this whole COVID-19 lockdown and crisis that goes along with this. What is this that we keep hearing a drum beat on the second more deadly wave of coronavirus? I'm looking at a piece from the Telegraph saying to hit Europe this winter, according to Europe's top World Health Organization officials.
Yes, it's the big question mark. The second coming of the COVID-19, we just don't know. I mean, based on our prior experiences with the flu, going back to the Spanish flu, we know these viruses will come back in a second return. We see that with our influenza viruses. In fact, as we see new viruses hit the world in the past, we just don't know, how extensive that's going to be. The assumption always is the second wave is worse than the first. But time will tell.
I want to bring this back to just kind of a basic virology questions for you here. And this goes to how protective, our masks, how infectious is this thing? If I know somebody, if somebody has COVID-19, is the coronavirus present in every secretion they have, in every breath they take and exhale? Is there a chance for infection, or 100% chance that breath includes the coronavirus? How infectious is this once it's in a person? Because it only takes, I'm assuming, one singular virus to start the disease in a person, and then it starts replicating. Is it then part of everything that you secrete after that?
During the time you're infectious, yes, you are secreting virus in every bodily fluid.
Every time, every sample.
Every sample.
Okay.
Every secretion, every stool, and I believe it's also in the urine. But your point about the one virus, that's probably not quite true. We don't know always how many viral particles it takes to make a person sick. In other words, I could be exposed to thousands of viral particles, and that would make me sick. But if I'm exposed to millions, then that will make me sick.
Or if I was exposed to one particle, the odds of that landing and infecting me are low. I'll probably pass that through me.
Yeah, very, very low. And depending on my own infectivity, and we get back to the receptors, the viral particles have to attach to receptors, and you probably have to attach thousands to millions of these viral particles before you're going to become infected. And that varies dramatically between different people.
Different people and different viruses too?
And different viruses.
Okay.
Depending on the virus and your receptor and your immune system status, it's all over the place. That some people, a very small amount of viral load will cause them disease. Other people can tolerate extremely high exposure to a viral load and not get sick at all.
Have we done studies on that to find out if there's different factors for what the viral load needs to be to make you sick?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the years with different viruses, and I'll be honest, I'm not a very good virologist, but yes, depending on the virus, they've done studies on what the exposure level is before a person would likely become ill.
Dr. Norem, one more before we let you go, because we're up against the clock, and I know you've got lots of things that you've got to take care of as well. I know we touched on this before, but I heard this conversation again over the course of the last week since last we spoke about extended care facilities. It began with someone going, this will be great when they can finally lift this and we get the all clear. We can go in and see grandma again. We can go see grandpa again. We can do all these sorts of things. The other person who happened to work at an extended care facility said, oh, no. It's never going back to the way it was before.
Not in the near future, no question. The extended care facilities are extremely high risk because of the concentrated populations and the need to have, the one-on-one care for people. I don't see that happening for months. We've already talked about the second wave. We're going to have to get through the second wave. We're going to have to get immunizations, better testing. I see facilities like extended care remain locked down for the near future and beyond.
18 months?
Maybe not that long,
okay.
but certainly through next spring until we have a better idea what's going on, and possibly depending on the ability to get a vaccine.
Okay. Yeah, because that would be somewhat of a game changer, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Where are we on vaccine? For what you've read?
We're still a ways away. There's this new type of vaccine that could be developed within 4 to 6 months, but it's a totally new type of vaccine. We don't have any other examples of that, so we just don't know.
When you say new type of vaccine, a new way of fighting? Or?
Yes, a different mechanism, totally from where the previous traditional vaccines that we already have. I'll have to do a little more looking into that again, but it's fascinating, and it involves it comes from the fact that they don't use any actual viral particles that are modified from existing viruses or the virus that you're trying to vaccinate against. It's structured from different other pieces, so we're just not sure if it's even going to work.
Okay, yeah, there's the guessing game that is going to have to go on until it's all played out as well. Dr. Norem, as always, we appreciate the expertise, and if you're up for it next Monday, we would love to continue our discussion.
Sounds great, guys.
Thanks a lot.
See you next week.